Before you play Dead Island 2, catch up on the plot of the first game. About 10 years after the events of Dead Island, the United States government and U.S. military are forced to put California under a full quarantine restricted zone due to a new and stronger zombie outbreak. Dead Island is a 2011 action role-playing game developed by Techland and published by Deep Silver. Released for Linux, Microsoft Windows, OS X, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360, the game is centered on the challenge of surviving a zombie-infested open world with a major emphasis on melee combat. The plot focuses on 4 playable survivors trying to survive and escape off the fictional island of Banoi. The night after a high-profile party, 4 playable main characters, hereafter referred to as the survivors rapper Sam B, hotel receptionist and spy for the Hong Kong government Xian, former football star Logan Carter, and ex-police officer Purna Jackson, are awakened by a voice over the emergency intercom system directing them to evacuate the hotel. They discover that the majority of the population have been overcome by a contagious and infectious plague, turning them into psychopathic, flesh-eating creatures. Briefly overcome by one of the infected, they are rescued by lifeguard John Sinamoi. The survivors discover that they are apparently immune from infection, and with the voice out of contact, the survivors are tasked by Sinamoi to try to find supplies and contact the outside world. As it becomes obvious that the resort lacks enough supplies to survive for long, Sinamoi instead has them travel to the city of Moresby to find help. The survivors take along Xian, the daughter of the bitten mechanic who modifies an armored car they used to break out of the resort. Upon arriving in Moresby, after taking down a new special infected known as the Ram, the survivors aid a holdout at a barricaded church. Directed first to the wealthier sections of town, they ultimately raid a supermarket under the control of rascal gangs. Xian tries to offer supplies to another rascal faction in the abandoned police station, who capture and rape her. The gang kill the rascal members and rescue Xian, but her actions angered Sam B. Upon their return to the resort, the survivors make contact with the voice. Introducing himself as Colonel Ryder White, a Banoi Island Defense Force (BIDF) commander. He is currently trapped in a high-security prison located on a remote island, only accessible through the jungle. He states that due to the character's immunity, he could create a cure/vaccine, and in turn save his bitten wife. White directs the survivors into the jungles of Banoi, having them find a smuggler named Mauen who can reach the prison. Mauen stonewalls the survivors on the prison, but does take them to a lab studying the plague. Their researchers determine the infection is a mutation of Kuru that originated from the indigenous population. At their behest, the survivors collect a tissue sample from a native mummy to better examine the pre-mutation form of Kuru and rescue a native woman, Urima, who was about to be sacrificed by her tribe. Mauen finally agrees to take the survivors to the prison. After the survivors complete the preparations that he and Xian requested, they hurry back to the lab when White reports that something's gone wrong. They find the zombies the scientists were studying were accidentally released, with only Urima still alive. Rescuing Urima and retrieving what appears to be a prototype vaccine, the survivors proceed to the prison island. The survivors initially help the surviving prisoners to arm themselves in exchange for reaching White, but when White finally contacts them again, he urges them to abandon the prisoners and proceed to him. The prisoners' holdout eventually falls and Mauen dies, helping Xian and Urima escape. As the survivors are about to reach White, however, they are hit with a knockout gas inside their elevator. Awoken by a tech-savvy prisoner named Kevin, they learn that White stole the vaccine and are warned that he intends to flee with his wife and call in a nuclear strike to purge the island. Racing to the roof helipad, the survivors find themselves held by White at gunpoint. Xian, disgusted by White's plan, releases White's now zombified wife from her restraints, and she bites White on the wrist. White kills his wife and shoots Xian dead, then injects himself with the vaccine, only for it to accelerate and amplify his own mutation. The survivors kill White, then finally escape Banoi with his helicopter as Kevin intones that things will never be the same.